I spent 6 years on a school board as the only Democrat on that school board. And again, to all of them, it wasn't a surprise. I didn't hide that. In fact, John was principal there for a while with me. And I think you could go up to every single person that I served and they'd say, I don't really agree with Braxton on anything, but I respect him and I value his take on things. And he was principled and consistent and on his priorities and cared about the school and what was going on there. And I've really tried to take those things that I learned there and bring them to the county. You're not gonna find many Democrats that are as pro-law enforcement as I am. You know, I got one. The best example I have of that at the county, last year, we got wage increases for 911 operators. Again, for first responders, right? Like who can't agree that we need to support our first responders, right?
Absolutely.
There were staffing issues there. There was an increase in funding from the state through work that County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, we all come together, come up with priorities. We lobby Harrisburg. We got an increase on the 911 surcharge. If you look on your phone bills, you'll see a little thing on there that's a 911 surcharge. It's not even $2 a phone that you pay. That money pays for your 911 centers in our county. We had some extra money there, and over the course of quite a while, I was able to find a second vote and get that to happen. So, we worked to do that. These issues aren't partisan issues. Like the national issues are so abstract and so out there that we are at a point where we are like fighting with our neighbors. We go on social media and we get into these fights with people. We talk to people in the most disgusting way because we don't see them right in front of us. Like, we don't talk to people that way face to face. I hear people saying, like, I'm not gonna go to this business over here because they voted for Trump. Or I hear it the other direction too. Like, how do we exist in a community like that if we're gonna pick and choose people based upon how they vote?
Thank you. Right on.
I don't make decisions in that office thinking about what Ken Martin and the DNC would want me to do. I make decisions over in that office so I can freaking sleep at night and live with myself with whatever that is. There's a place for compromise, but there's also a place for standing for what you believe in and living your morals and being able to live with that. So yes, absolutely, if the right thing to do is a Republican idea, I'm gonna stand up for it and I'm gonna tell everybody that that's the right thing to do.
Good job.
Why don't you have a bipartisan town hall meeting then?
Today.
Yeah. Well, this town is separated, we all know that. We
Sure.
do. Why isn't it time, what's happening on the Fed level is just overwhelming for all of us. So why can't we begin to focus on local, because local does affect us more than anything else.
Local affects us more than anything else,
So
100%.
why can't the commissioners, and if they don't agree, you work with someone else and start working towards bipartisan meetings? Even if they begin with everybody yelling at each other. And, we only hear what we want to hear. The other side only hears what they want to hear. Maybe it's time we hear each other.
I love the idea, and part of the reason I'm here, great question. Part of the reason I'm here today is because enough people asked me to do this. This wasn't a thing that I woke up one day and was like, yeah, I want to go stand up on a stage on a Tuesday night and maybe get yelled at. Been a great audience, by the way. So, I would say if that's the thing you want, you need to call our offices, send some emails, let us know. It works. I received emails. I had people send me emails asking me to do this. I had phone calls from people asking me to do this. And we should.
Yep.
Sure, obviously the timing of this as a Democrat, it looks great for me, right? Because we're seeing these everywhere and people are pissed off and concerned and scared. I want to do this next year. We should be doing this every year, right? We should be having these conversations. There's going to be, we don't even know what the problems are going to be facing the county next year. We need to have these conversations. So I agree. But I mean, it's going to take people reaching out to them because, you know, we're all responsible for our own offices in that regard. But I'm glad people reached out and asked me to do it.
Okay, it's 7:54, so I'm gonna do 3 more questions, and 2 are on this card.
Perfect.
Can I ask both of them right after another?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question, what does the future of public transit look like in the region as the university continues to face financial issues? And then the second question, what action items can we as a small community take to protect our democracy? What are your plans as an official?
Ooh. So, you know, our community's changing, and it's changed a lot in the last 20 years. And I think the idea around how public transit should work in communities like ours is changing. You know, obviously there were, and it was public out there, the financial issues around the bus runs. You know, where were they going? Eventually they had to cut one back. And I know as enrollment has gone down, there has been less and less student ridership as well. So it's getting harder and harder to justify the money that the university spends on this to make it work. But public transit in these communities is very, very important. If anybody's, one of like the unifying things of people that have ever lived in poverty is knowing the vicious cycle of trying to own a car and get to work that is constantly falling apart. And anybody that's experienced that poverty has probably gone through that stage in their life at some point. Public transit's important for people to get to work, it's important for them to get to school, it's important for people to get to the doctor. So how do we do that? Because I don't know that the answer anymore in a community like this is a huge bus going around town every day. There are, if you look at Titusville, Pennsylvania, it's where I went to high school. They have, and this is a publicly run system, almost like an Uber there that's publicly run. So they got rid of their fixed routes. They tripled their stops. And all you have to do is call. They bought up some vans, and all you have to do is make a call, and they come and get you right then and there and take you to where you need to go within the region. And it's free for seniors, totally free, all covered through federal dollars. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like this is what I'm working on for tomorrow. There's a lot of moving pieces to make that kind of thing happen that's federal. I don't have my fingers in that, but. You know, that is a solution that is working outstanding in a community that looks a lot like ours here. Beyond that, you know, the county does have the transit for healthcare issues that goes around different parts of the county as a whole. You know, that's not really a public transportation kind of issue, but I do know, much like broadband, like housing, another sign of a healthy community is access to public transportation. So that has to be part of whatever solution we have to making sure that this is going to be a growing community. Oh, there was another question too. Go ahead and ask that one, and I'm going to get to that last question at the end to go along with what was asked of me earlier. I haven't forgotten.
The second question?
Yeah, the second
Okay.
part of that I'll answer.
What action items can we do as a small community to protect our democracy, and what are your plans as a public official?
Okay. Is this the last one? Because this feels like a good last question. Yeah. Okay. And going in line with what you said, you asked me earlier. Look, democracy it's an idea, right? Democracy is an idea. It's a wish. It's not like a noun. It's not this thing that you hold on to. It's an actionable thing. So it requires people's participation, and it requires people's participation to do more than to show up and vote once every 4 years, to show up and vote maybe every other year. It requires your vote twice a year, every year. That's step number one, right? Big important thing. Vote twice a year, every year.
That's right. I was watching.
You need to reach out to your elected officials. You should know who they are. You should know what they believe in, and you should know the projects that they're working on in your communities. And not just commissioner, not just Congress, Senate, whatever that is. Like, you should know who your township supervisors are. You should know who your school board members are. Go to a school board meeting. Wouldn't it be nice if someone showed up to a school board meeting once in a while, though?
Oh, wait, one thing. Our borough and our board meeting is at the same Tuesday at the same time. I think
So
that's
you guys are
very
gonna have to
constitutional.
divide and
Like,
conquer.
No, I think we should have that change. That's not fair if I live in the borough and I have a kid in school. And you have to choose. Anyways, sorry.
No, you're good.
always fun.
Go to those meetings once in a while. See what's really happening. The biggest issues in your community are local. The things to take care of your roads, to take care of your infrastructure around storm sewer and Clarion Borough. It's all local, so you should know that. You should take the time to know that. You know, I mentioned earlier the continuing resolution thing, and I know I'm really surprised. I expected to get one question tonight about John Fetterman, and I didn't get one.
That's the question.
That's okay. And you know, my answer to people's frustrations with him, and frustrations with any other government official, and I know there's people in here that are doing that work now, keep reaching out to your elected officials. Keep reaching out to them. Whether you're happy with them, I mean, we don't usually reach out to our elected officials when we're happy with them, right? Like, I know that.
Let's be
I know that. But you need to do it when they do a good job. You need to tell them when they're doing a good job. You need to tell them when they're doing a bad job. You need to tell them when you're not happy. That's the other part of democracy that we all have to be a part of and play a role. You don't have to go and show up to 1 million protests. You don't have to go and knock on doors. You don't have to do any of that. But know what's going on in your community. Know what your elected officials are doing. That is, to me, that's the most important part of figuring out what it is you can do. You know, I know there's people that are concerned about what democracy looks like, right? I know that there's concerns about we're seeing executive orders every day that are signed that everyone knows on the minute the ink dries that it's unconstitutional, right? I mean, you're seeing challenges to birthright citizenship, for God's sake. So I think it's legitimate to be concerned about that. But those of us in here, those of us in the community, like if we do our part, if we keep reaching out, we keep making our voices heard, we can protect that. We can protect those ideas that you know, people who have sworn that oath and have defended and stood up for. So
This is what democracy looks like.
this is what democracy looks like. Yeah, that's the change.
Braxton,
Go ahead, John.
I was gonna try not to say anything tonight, but democracy requires more than a vote.
Right.
And if you've read anything that I've written, I've listened to, I've read Thomas Jefferson so often. He talks about the concept, in order for our great experiment to survive, and what he was referring to was democracy, we need an educated citizenry. And he said that requires, when we go to vote, we have to practice what he referred to in concept as informed consent, rightful informed consent. That means we have to educate ourselves. And we do that through a really, really robust system of public education. And we do that by making sure that we're getting the full story from our news media. Let me suggest, if you're getting your news from one source, and I don't care whether it's Newsmax, Fox News, or MSNBC, and God forbid if you're getting your news from social media, you may not be getting the full story on any issue from either side. And that would sort of run back to the education piece. And I've dealt with the Department of Education at the state and federal level in my career. And I had the dubious honor of working with PBE for about 6 months, 3 or 4 years ago as a consultant. They make some really good decisions, but they've also made some really poor decisions. When No Child Left Behind was passed, it was probably one of the worst things we perpetrated on public education, because we put a standardized test which has such a cultural, social, economic bias. It's really useless in terms of determining how well a school district is doing. We need to get back, we need to teach kids critical thinking skills, analysis, pick up a newspaper, interpret what they're reading. And then they can become truly the educated citizenry that Thomas Jefferson talked about.
Thank you.
So it is 8 o'clock, and I think we're going to get kicked out of here soon if we don't wrap it up. So, I want to thank everybody for coming out, for asking questions, for being involved in democracy and what's going on in the public. I had a great time doing this tonight, and I will definitely be signing up to do one of these next year. So with that, have a safe trip home, have a happy Tuesday, and wish you nothing but the best.